So now we have some different edits that we can do, and it's all about being creative and having fun and trying different things. So let's start with the man, and we're going to do something that's pretty popular. We're going to give him an outline, and we do that with what's called a stroke. And this is where the smoothing thing is really going to help out, because if we didn't smooth it, it would be a little more jagged than it will be, but smoothing it out helps it a little bit, and you'll see that in just a moment. So we want to add a layer style, and what's going to happen, let me hide the background here for a minute, is with the layer style, it's going to find pixel information, and then it's going to apply an effect to this layer wherever there is pixel information. Now, wherever it's transparent, that effect will not be applied. So for instance, we're going to give him an outline. So to do that, go down to the bottom and click on this FX button, and it's actually a layer style button, and you can see we have different things we can do. We can do a shadow, we can do a glow, we can do all kinds of different things, but we want to pick stroke. And this is going to create a stroke around the layer. Now you might not be able to see it right now. Let's go ahead and change the color to a bright color so it's easier to see. So we'll pick, say, the blue's easy, but let's do something even more easier like magenta. And you can see that stroke is being applied. Now, when I smoothed that layer, it made these lines a little nicer. You'll notice that if you didn't smooth that out, the lines would actually be a little more rigid and rough. So what we can do is we can change the size. So by changing the size, it'll actually change the stroke around him. And see, we can zoom in and zoom out, and you can see how that affects it. So we'll find something that might look a little cool. And the cool thing is that we can always come and adjust this later on if we find out that it's not right. Because we are creating this with a layer style, it's editable, it's non-destructive, which means we can make edits later on and it won't affect anything. Make sure that the position is set to outside. If you have it on inside, it'll actually go to the inside and cover up some of the image. We don't want that. And center is going to find the distance between the inside and outside, which might look okay for your image, but I'm going to use outside for now so that the stroke is completely on the outside. And then the blend mode to normal and opacity to 100%. And then let's go ahead and hit OK, and let's bring back our background layer back in. So now you can see what's happening here. So we'll go ahead and change this stroke. So if I want to make any adjustments, I can go back to the layers panel and double click on that stroke icon there, and it'll bring up the stroke panel, and then I can go ahead and make my adjustments. So if I see something that doesn't look right, or I need to change the color, I can do that. So let's go ahead and give it that stroke. I've got 4 pixels for now, and let's go ahead and give it a white color. We're going to make this one white, and we're going to hit OK. So that looks pretty good. So now you could see that there might be some areas around the clothing that the stroke isn't filling in. It's just because we're seeing a little bit of the background. So that's a little too much. Let's see. So around his sleeve here, there's a little bit of gap between the stroke and his actual sleeve because we selected a little bit of the background. So with the man layer selected, we can actually go to our eraser tool, and we can erase out a little bit of that background, and it will bring this in to his sleeve because remember, it's working on it's a layer style that's working based on the pixel information that we're showing. So some of these parts where I might have grabbed some of the background, I might just come in and touch up real quick. And all I'm doing is I'm using the eraser brush to erase out some of the pixels, and the stroke is moving with it because it's a style that's being applied. Now I am doing this with a mouse, so it's a little tricky. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I want to keep doing the effect to show you, but of course I would come in here and touch this up a little bit. So that's one way that you can come in and fix any areas that you see that might not look really good. But this is a good start. So what that stroke has done is it has added a little bit more separation to the background. Now this is going to look a little more stylized as we go on. It looks kind of cheesy right now, but you'll see the finished product. It looks pretty nice. And what it's doing is it's just separating him out. This is a common technique that we see in a lot of YouTube thumbnails and use it all the time because it helps just make the image pop a little more and draw your attention because you're drawn to this great picture, but then you're drawn to this stroke that's really pointing this guy out, and it'll match the text that we have and so forth. So you'll see the final product, but let's go ahead and move along. So next what we're going to do is we're going to edit the background. So the background looks great. It's out of focus and this is a great image. We could probably just go ahead and slap some text right on here. However, I want to do some other things that's just going to make it a little more stylized or maybe branded if you want to use some certain colors. So go ahead and click on that background layer. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to start adjusting the background and changing things like its color and doing things of that nature. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add an adjustment layer. Now the adjustment layer works just like the layer style. However, it's just going to affect the whole layer and adjust it as if you were using any of the image adjustments at the top. So if you go to image adjustments and you see things like brightness levels, contrast, hue and saturation, and so forth, that lets you edit the layer. And I can do that with a layer adjustment, but the great thing about the layer adjustment is that it's non-destructive. So I can apply the layer adjustment and change some of those settings, and then later on if I need to make any changes, I can do that automatically. So go ahead and click on the layer adjustment button at the bottom, and then you'll see some of those different settings here. So all the different things that we can create. So the first one that we're going to add in is we're going to add in this one called black and white. So go ahead and punch that in, and it's going to turn the background black and white. Now remember, we're not working on the man layer, we're working on the background layer. We stuck a black and white adjustment layer that is affecting anything that's below it. So right now, what's below it is the background and the original layer. So it's actually affecting both of those. If I turn off background and show original, it's affecting that one too. If this black and white adjustment layer was above the man layer, it would be affecting it also. And that's not what we want. We want to go ahead and click and drag and make sure that it is below the man layer and above the background layer, so it's only affecting what's beneath it. Now, this allows us to go and change the values, the brightness and darkness areas of different colors. So for instance, if I want to make the reds brighter or darker in the image, you can see them changing in the background as I move the slider around. This uses a lot of blues, so we'll take the cyan, and as we adjust this, you can see the image change. So we can make areas brighter or darker based on their colors. We're going to come back to this in just a moment, and the next thing that we're going to do is add another adjustment layer. So we're going to add in what's called a gradient map. And what the gradient map does is it allows us to assign a gradient to different values. So wherever there are dark parts of the image, like these cans or this wall in the background, we can give it one color. And wherever there are lighter elements, like this white board or wall that's going on here, we can give it a brighter color. And by doing so, it allows us to have this really cool stylized effect that we often see nowadays. And it's pretty common, but it looks really great. So go down to Adjustment Layers, click on that, and then go to Gradient Map and select that. Now, nothing has really changed because we're using a black and white gradient map, and it's treating it just like the black and white adjustment layer that we have here. So let's change that out to some colors. Go ahead and click on that gradient map, and then you can select any one of these colors. Now, I have some pre-made that I made before, and you can see that there's some that Photoshop loads with. If you click on this little gear icon, you can actually bring in different gradient maps. So for instance, if I want to bring in pastels, I can click on that, and it'll say, do we want to replace them or append them? If we append them, it will just add them in. So let's go ahead and click append, and it will add those colors in here. Well, let's go ahead and select one, and I will show you what's happening. So we're going to select this red and blue one. And what is going on is everything that is darker in the image, like the wall that we looked at or those cans, is receiving this red color on the left-hand side. And everything that is brighter is receiving the blue, like that that white wall that we had there. And then all the values in between are getting a nice blend of this gradient. So we can scroll through these gradients and see some of the different effects that they have. And you can, this one actually uses 3 colors. So the darks are getting blues, the brights are getting yellows, and the midtones are getting more of a red color. So you can come in here and you can do a bunch of really cool different effects by using these different maps. So go ahead and select one. I'm going to go ahead and select this red to blue, or if you want to create your own, you can click on the little color icon here, click on the color swatch, and then what we can do is we can try to manipulate this a little bit. So you might be on hue and saturation, and you can change that around. We'll leave it on red. I'm going to click on the brightness, and I'm going to make it a little darker. So I want it to still kind of be a dark color. Since it's the dark values that we're picking up, if we use a bright color, it really washes out the image like this. We don't want that, so we want to pick maybe like a dark color. I think that looks kind of cool. Hit OK. And then we can go to the blue color. And we can adjust that a little bit. Now if we bring it down, it's going to bring down all the light values. And we can just kind of move around. I'm actually looking at his jacket right here and seeing if I can maybe find something that would work kind of similar to the colors in the image. And that's one thing that I will do as a designer is I'll try to pull in colors that are already being used and see how they work. So let's go back to the red. Maybe it's a little too dark. Let's brighten that up a little bit. Okay, so when we have something that we like, we can go ahead and hit the OK button and it'll save that out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the black and white adjustment layer. And remember, this is changing the values. So wherever there was red, we can make it brighter or darker. And wherever there's yellows, we can make them brighter or darker. So by going in and manipulating this, because we're using this gradient map, you can make parts of the image come in or out based on their value and the gradient map that's being used. So there's not a lot of yellows, not a whole lot of greens. Now we know there's a lot of cyans and blues, so we can really brighten up this image or really darken it up based on how much of the cyans we want to add or subtract in this image. So there's a little bit of dark blues, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of magentas. So you can come in and manipulate those and definitely have a little more fine control of your actual image.